Okay, hi everyone. So the first thing I want to talk about is the UK hub. Dfinity has launched the ICP Hubs network now, which I think has actually been really successful in sort of helping project creators through their journey on the ICP, but also to share what we're building on ICP with a wider community all over the world. We're seeing the hub network really grow, especially in Asia, and produce some real results. But what we've got here in the UK, I think, is one of the richest communities of ICP projects. That's really what this conversation's about, and learning as much as we can from SNS projects. So thanks to Tom and Hamish for coming to do this. Yeah, thank you. Maybe you can both start by kind of introducing yourselves, how you got here, and also brief elevator pitch for your platform. If you want to start, Tom.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Tom. I am one of the founders of TRAX. We are a direct-to-fan music platform on ICP. We started the project, I think, in October of 2022. Quite quickly built an MVP of the platform and launched it, I think it was around spring of 23. The response was really good. I think there is a wider demand among artists for new platforms that make it easier for them to share their music with their following and also monetize that music, and that's kind of really what we're focused on. So yeah, we've been building now for about a year. We launched our SNS in December of last year, which was successful on the second time. On the first time, we made a mistake with the config file. And yeah, so now we've been able to launch as an SNS. We're now, the entire platform runs on the IC, and we are governed by a DAO, which basically allows for our users to have an active say in how the platform's developed. So yeah, it's a bit about TRAX, what we've been up to. I'll pass over to Hamish.
Thank you. I'm Hamish. I'm one of the 3 founders of OpenChat. We started OpenChat, I think it was about 3 years ago. That's flown by. We started building OpenChat actually before the Internet Computer mainnet launch. We demoed it as a very simple chat app to Dom, and Dom loved it, and we originally were just contracted to Dfinity up until the point when we did our SNS launch. And then since doing the SNS launch, we've been self-funded. And our vision is to be just the most widely used chat app out there. You know, you've got the incumbents like WhatsApp. When you use WhatsApp, it's owned by Meta, which is Facebook's company. They claim it's end-to-end encrypted. Let's assume it is. It may not be. But even if it is end-to-end encrypted, they can still see who you're messaging. They can see when you're messaging them, where you're messaging from. And so you might message a new friend, and then you sign into Facebook, and it's like, do you want to add this person as a friend? It's like, you shouldn't know that I've been messaging them, but they do. They know, they build up all of these social networks, and then they can monetize that by selling that data, and then people buying that data can push to influence people in whatever direction they want to influence them in. Whereas with OpenChat, there is no backing company. It's all just it's a DAO. It's governed and owned by the people. All of the code is open source, and it's verifiably, you can verify that what is actually running in smart contracts is actually the code that is open source, which I think is quite unique to the Internet Computer. And so you can be 100% sure that there is no data farming of your data going on. And so we want to build it such that we have all of the features that you'd expect from a chat app. We launched video calls a week or 2 ago. We will soon have end-to-end encryption, not quite yet. So we don't have quite all the features that you'd expect to see from WhatsApp and Discord and so on, but we're nearly there. And yeah, that's it.
It's awesome. I mean, obviously, I've been using both platforms now for a while. And yeah, really impressed, first of all, with how it's all working so far, but I'm seeing so much growth all the time. So really, really cool. But I think let's sort of talk about the SNS itself and what it means to run a DAO. So I suppose my question is, what does it mean to run a DAO to you guys? Now you've been doing it for a while, for a few months. And how do you find engaging with the community through proposals for, you know, code updates and treasury disbursements and whatnot? Like, what is that like, and what are your thoughts on it? We'll start with you, Henry.
Okay, so it's actually been a lot smoother than we thought it would be. Before we became a DAO, all of the upgrades we would do, we would have like a script for each of the upgrades, and then when we became a DAO, we basically replicated those scripts, but instead of updating the smart contract directly, it would push a proposal which would contain the WASM to upgrade the smart contract to. And so in terms of our process, it's actually been fairly smooth. We have had a few hiccups where sometimes we might put the wrong WASM in the proposal, but then we just reject it, and it's a bit of a, like, public, everyone can see that you've done it wrong, but it's not too bad. And then obviously you then have to wait for the proposal to pass, or not in some cases. But generally it's been smooth. I think a bit of a tip to anyone launching SNS is just automate as much as you can in terms of the proposals. You're just way less error prone, and it just makes it all a lot easier. We've also had quite a lot of proposals submitted from the community, and you know, that's quite nice to see the community get involved, and that a lot of that will drive the direction. People may propose like a feature or something, and then if it passes, we would then build that feature, and it works quite nicely with the community being able to fairly easily submit proposals.
And actually, on that topic, I think that I've seen you've built a system within OpenChat to allow other DAOs to run their proposals through OpenChat. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so every time a new SNS is created, we will automatically, we have like a job that runs once a day, I think, that checks for new SNSs, and when it sees a new one, we will create a new group where we will push each of the proposals, and then people can just vote directly within OpenChat. We would also then enable token transfers for that new SNS just straight away. We also allow people to submit their own proposals for that SNS straight away. So you can go onto the proposals chat for any SNS, and just in the chat menu, just do submit proposal, put in what you want, and off it goes. And so we wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to get involved in the governance.
Yeah, and not have to build that themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tom, how are you finding it so far? Is it as sort of surprisingly smooth like Hamish?
Yeah, I think there is some misconceptions before doing one that you're handing over control of a project that you've spent a year and a half building. And for a lot of people, that's going to be quite disconcerting. But that's not really how it transpires. I think, if anything, it's quite a powerful tool because it allows users or early adopters of these new projects, new platforms, to really feel that they are involved in decision making, whether that's on an update basis or how funds should be spent. So, compared to a Web 2 background, and that's my background, you don't have the ability for users to come in and, put something forward and suggest a new concept or feel that they are engaged with. And really that just means that you have a more invested user base at an early stage. So I think it's actually a really powerful tool that, it's new to ICP. I haven't seen other chains doing anything kind of similar to an SNS, and I think there was a lot of thought that went into the creation of the SNS system, and it's transpired that it has worked.
So part of what I think is maybe not talked about enough with the SNS structure is obviously token holders govern the code that's subject to SNS, but also the treasuries. Is there anything you've been thinking about in terms of how to use your treasury to develop your platform or continue decentralization, some sort of creative application for your treasury. I think OpenChat, if I'm not mistaken, you've been, well, sponsoring other ICP teams, which is already like pretty... Oh, your proposal?
He submitted the proposal.
So that's good to know, you see, yeah. Amazing. And I've also noticed you've been doing the same thing with Carbon Crowd. So, yeah, I mean, I'll leave the floor to you, but...
We've also got an upcoming marketing campaign through Cointelegraph. And as of a few hours ago, we hired our fourth OpenChat Labs. So we have OpenChat Labs is like the company, much like Dfinity Foundation and Internet Computer, we have OpenChat Labs and then OpenChat. And so OpenChat Labs just hired a chief growth officer a few hours ago. So that's our latest news. So he will be, pushing us to the wider audience.
Tom, anything from you?
Yeah, I think for music it's a little bit different, but again, the treasury is governed by the DAO. We have a company which is primarily responsible for development of the TRAX platform, and we, invest in growth and marketing and that kind of stuff. But there is a real problem amongst emerging artists to access funding to do things like produce an album or mix and master something that you've recorded. And I think, what I'm really keen for us to do this year more of is to have a tool by where, artists can come to us, make an application similar to Dfinity's grant application process and be considered by the DAO, have users and other artists on the platform vote on their application and start using it to kind of reward artists for joining the platform. And that can be quite a powerful tool for us going forwards.
Now I want to know what's next for both of you in terms of tech developments. So what are we going to see next? What's kind of the big updates coming for TRAX?
For TRAX, mobile application development. So, everyone uses or listens to music via a mobile app on their phone. When we launched, we have to launch something fairly quickly, and it's much easier to build a web application first. It's also a lot easier to build a web application to interact with the IC because a lot of the kind of tooling is more geared to web development. But we're realists. I want people to be using this to listen to music on a day-to-day basis, and they're not going to do that unless they have the ease of access of a mobile app. So we're working on those two now. Music NFTs is something that we are working on. I think when we first came into the space, there were, not necessarily on ICP, but there are a number of music NFT platforms. It's quite a saturated market. I think there's still value in music NFTs, although sentiment towards them around the music industry has kind of tailed off a little bit. But they can be quite a powerful tool for an artist who does have a community that's interested in kind of the Web3 space, they're interested in NFTs, then it can be powerful for that. So primarily we're focused on the mobile application at the moment and making that really good. There's a bunch of UX, UI stuff with our platform that we're putting considerable work into now to kind of make it a lot easier and smoother to use.
So up next for OpenChat, so we just launched video calls about 2 weeks ago, but that is currently just while we kind of iron out a few little buglets. That's currently restricted to private chats and only with up to 20 participants. But going forward, we want to open that up to like public communities. We want to massively increase the number of participants, into the hundreds. This isn't on chain, by the way. We're using like some platform called Daily, and through them, we also, going forward, we want to have it where you can have like a broadcast, so you can have 3, 5, 10, whatever people presenting and thousands of people viewing. And so we also want to do kind of voice-only stuff like Twitter Spaces. So if we could have within people's communities, they could do, rather than a Twitter space, they would have an OpenChat. We'll have a name for it of something, but an OpenChat space, which would be the same.
So that comes a little bit to my next, what I want to talk about. So part of the problems with ICP's full stack 100% on-chain web hosting, but in both your cases, there's there are things that need to be done off-chain. Like, I'm thinking in your video hosting, audio file storage, whatever it might be, and we've just seen the video player that you've released, and so there's some compromise to make to develop user-friendly applications whilst keeping the bulk of it on-chain, obviously. How do you find the balance in that, and sort of maybe the reaction from the community in some cases? What advice would you give?
Okay. Our main focus is we want to have the features, like we want it to be as good an app as possible. And so if there are things that cannot be done on chain, then fine, we will have to do them off chain, but if we think it's worth doing so. And as long as it's not taking the message data or user data off chain. So all of the messages, all of the profiles, everything, the data is on chain. We're doing video calls are off chain, but that's an optional thing. If you want to stay fully on chain, then just don't call anyone. Similarly, we push notifications using an off-chain program. We've spoken to Dfinity about this. We can move that on-chain in the future once they have, at the moment you can make HTTP out calls from a canister, but it gets made 13 times and it goes through consensus, so it's really expensive. So if someone, we've got group chats with nearly 50,000 people in it. If you send one message and you'd have to send 50,000 messages through consensus, each one being sent 13 times, the cost is, OpenChat is free. That would not be free. And so what we need is really cheap, no guarantees at all. It would come from one replica HTTP out calls, and you wouldn't be able to do anything with the response because the response wouldn't be going through consensus. The request may not even be made because the replica that gets chosen may be malicious, but that's a trade-off that we'd be willing to make. It's just a notification. It would already be encrypted, so there'd be no way to receive an incorrect message. You'd either receive nothing or you'd receive the correct message. And we'd be happy to make that trade-off. And once we have that, then we can get rid of the component we have in AWS and bring that on chain. So the video calls and the pushing notifications are the only things we have off chain. And yeah, notifications we can bring on, video calls we probably can't bring on for the foreseeable future.
Well, there was, back in the day, someone was trying to do breaking down video files and sharding them across multiple canisters to make it possible to upload video files. I don't really know how far that got, but it's something probably someone might look to developing in the future.
But that wouldn't be two-way instantaneous communication. So, yeah.
Okay, hopefully one day. See how it goes. And Tom, any advice on, or any kind of struggles you face?
Well, yeah, for example, like you were just saying, the video streaming stuff. We built the ability to upload audio and video to your own canister if you're an artist on our platform and store it on the IC. The issue is the speed at which that takes place kind of ruins the user experience to a point where you have to question, is this even worth it? And for us, at this point, it's not. Now, I think it's difficult because there is this utopian end goal of 100% on-chain and all applications can run as they would run on AWS but on ICP. And that is a great end goal vision for the network to have. But we're 3 years in. So it's unfair of developers to expect Dfinity to be able to do that on a blockchain and have already done it. So it's all ready to go. There are certain things with ICP that it's leaps and bounds ahead of other networks. Reverse gas is incredibly novel and hasn't really seen its full potential utilized yet. The speed of the network, if you've ever tried to send something on plug from one wallet to another, it's almost instantaneous. So I think as more developers come to the IC, realize the potential of what actually already exists and has viable benefit for certain applications, it can be used. At the edge cases, video streaming, uploading of content, streaming of content, there's work to be done. But even recently, canister sizes increased to 400 gig. There's work being done there. I just think we need to allow the network to develop a bit more over time. And then, applications like ours can make use of what's being developed.
Yeah. Well, okay. So in that case, what are you most looking forward towards in terms of developments on the ICP network as a whole and how it will improve your platforms? Who wants to go
Should I
first?
go?
Yeah.
So, OpenChat, we went with the one canister per user model. So we currently have about 150, 160,000 canisters. And right now, even if a canister is idle, it uses up a small but non-negligible compute cost. And so a subnet, there was just recently some proposals that hard capped the number of canisters to 120,000 per subnet. And so the thing we want the most from Dfinity is for idle canisters to just have as close to zero compute cost to the replica as possible. Because, in OpenChat, in any 1 second, on the internet computer, there's a round every 1 second. And even on WhatsApp, when you're using WhatsApp and messaging someone like back and forth, most seconds you're not actually sending a message, even when you are in a conversation, let alone when you're asleep or not messaging someone. And so on any given round, 99% of the canisters are probably idle, or more than 99%. And so what we want is the idle canisters to have negligible cost, and then the limit will be the number of active canisters. And at that point, we could potentially have like millions of, maybe that's too high, but we could massively increase the number of canisters we could have per subnet, and that would mean that OpenChat could have many more users without having to occupy many more subnets.
Because actually, for people who don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, OpenChat runs on one subnet. There's one subnet that's kind of...
You are wrong.
I'm wrong, okay.
Yeah. It runs on two.
Two, okay.
Well, it runs on two, but then the SNS is also on a subnet, so we're partially running there. But essentially, yeah, the OpenChat canisters are on two subnets.
And what's the, essentially, for some of the larger projects that are going to kind of occupy a lot of computation, you can have a dedicated subnet?
Yeah. Realistically, I think all the projects that become massive scale are going to have loads of canisters. Well, you can either go the one canister per user, or you can have one canister overall, or you could like shard your users into. You could have 1,000 users per canister or something. I mean, we went with the one user per canister about 2 years ago, and it's very hard to change now. If we were starting from now, I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to do things based on the performance characteristics of the IC right now. In the future, if idle canisters genuinely have negligible cost, then I think the one canister per user model is the best, because your code is simplest. It's very easy to have like a security boundary around your users' data. But right now, it does mean that the scalability is slightly limited.
Okay, so that's for scalability. And I just want to ask you specifically, because I think it's applicable to OpenChat, are you looking forward to vet keys? And what does that mean for OpenChat?
We are looking forward to vet keys. So that will enable us to support end-to-end encryption, which is a pretty critical feature if we want to be able to compete with the likes of Signal, which is Signal is like the primary privacy-focused messaging app, and we want to be up there as at least as secure as Signal. We're actually going to copy their encryption algorithm, which WhatsApp do as well. Like Signal open source this, and I mean, I did cryptography at uni for one module, but I could not come up with a better encryption mechanism. We would much rather lean on the years of research that they've done. So once vet keys are around, we would just use them, yeah.
And that'll be easy for most apps to use if they want any kind of encryption. Are you going to be using vet keys, and what are you most looking forward to in terms of updates?
The launch of Viral, I think.
Launch of Viral.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm probably the wrong person to ask. I don't have the technical background that Hamish does. I think from my point of view, speed, in terms of, we've tried sharding. It was kind of there, but not really there. I'd like to see some advances made there, just so we can allow users to truly store the content on the IC, not just have certain elements on chain and certain elements off. Vet keys, I don't even really know what that is. So
Fair enough. Okay, well, okay, so there was a big update yesterday, which was the first AI model hosted on the IC on chain. Is there an angle for both of your DAOs to be looking at integrating some AI models into your systems? And if so, kind of maybe you can tell us what that will mean for the end user. Tom, do you want to?
Sure. I think for us, there's an easy one, which is kind of cover art for music. You know, if you're an artist trying to produce what your cover art is going to look like, you could spend a lot of money trying to produce it in real life, or nowadays you can use generative AI, DALL-E 3, something like that. So I'm quite excited to see, you know, if we can bring that kind of generative AI creation on chain, and then allow someone when they are uploading, you know, an album or a song, do you have cover art or would you like to generate some quickly? That I think is a nice, simple use case to start with. And then going forward, stuff like, you know, upload the song, it listens to the song, and it will transcribe the lyrics for you. You know, that can be quite valuable. So there's lots of bits and pieces that can be pulled out of AI that can be used to kind of accelerate an artist's work and when they're looking to release certain things. But I think we're still in its infancy. The video yesterday was great, good first step, and yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes from there.
Are you looking towards this?
Yeah, so one of the most requested features we get from our users is they say, how can we make a bot? Where they would want to have, you know, people can message this bot and it might get prices from some off-chain provider, or it might do whatever. That's up to the builders, building these bots. But another one that a lot of people have asked for is, could we have AI bots? And the two kind of go hand in hand, because what we need to build on our side is like a simplified bot API that anyone can then integrate with in a really easy way. And once we've done that, people can then build bots, and some of them could be bots to just Web 2 components to be drawing in whatever data, but then others could be AI bots. And it'd be quite fun, I think, to be able to message an AI bot on OpenChat and have it all on chain, and the AI bot will reply with, you know, whatever it is the bot is doing, but that's up to, we'd leave it up to the third parties, our users, to build those. But it would just be good to open those doors to make it possible.
Awesome, really cool. I like the sound of that. Before we move on to Q&A, I've got two last questions for you. The first is, tell us about your growth of both these platforms and how you found, like what your strategy is for going about growth and how it's going. Tom, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think growth is at about 40% month on month, which is great.
And that's in terms of user numbers, artists?
Kind of across the board in terms of like artists joining and users joining at the same time. In terms of like, you know, our strategy going forwards, I am a big proponent for doing things in the real world like this, you know, getting people together, especially for music. You know, actually makes onboarding a lot simpler. If you can have direct access to the person in the room, you can make them download the wallet, create an account on the application. So we're really looking at kind of events-based activations. We did a couple recently, which went really well. So looking to kind of scale that, you know, maybe up to the point where next year can we do an entire music festival that leverages a bunch of different ecosystem applications. You know, and with a festival, you've got 10 to 20, 30,000 people who are all coming together in one place. And it makes that, you know, education of the IC, but also people actually just adopting and starting to use these things in the real world a lot easier. And then apart from that, I think, you know, I've had a few people come up to me saying, I feel like you're one big artist away. I agree. I think all the tooling is there. We need to make some changes to UI, UX, and kind of appearance. But you know, we're really hoping to leverage some treasury funds to bring leading artists to this kind of product, educate them on the IC in general, and hopefully that, you know, also helps us grow. So yeah.
Awesome.
So for OpenChat, our focus for pretty much the whole time we've been building it, has been building the product rather than marketing the product. Because, you know, as we mentioned earlier, we do have this treasury available, but we don't want to like open the marketing taps and spend a load of the treasury, and people will come to OpenChat and be like, yeah, it's not very good, and then leave. So we wanted to build it up to a stage where it's good enough that people will stick. And I think we have pretty much got there. We're now looking to do the marketing, hence why we earlier today hired a chief growth officer. But up until now, our marketing has just been to tweet every so often, and you know, we'd be reaching out to SNS teams and trying to get them to bring their community over, because it kind of snowballs, so that when they bring their people over, it's just the more activity there is on OpenChat, like the more vibrant it is, and the more other people are enticed to come over. So we currently have around 2,500, 3,000 daily active users. We've just started recording the number of messages that we're sending, and you can now see that in Token Terminal. We have around 10,000 daily messages, and you can see the trend is in a nice direction. But yeah, we'll see in the next few weeks, months, with the onboarding of this chief marketing officer, how that changes things. But hopefully, you know, the usage charts progress nicely to the top.
Well, because, you know, like, we know of the community in the IC, and anybody who launches like a product kind of can get the attention of everybody in the IC, get to a stage where you can develop a mature product, reach an SNS, and then you reach that adulthood stage where it's time to go leave the house and sort of see what's on the outside. So I'm super excited to see where that goes for both of you. Amazing. Okay, one last thing before we open up. For everybody who's about to launch an SNS, or who's just started a new product on ICP or whatever, can you give them some advice? Any kind of advice you could give for someone who wants to reach an SNS.
You got any?
You can.
Advice for someone who's looking to launch?
Looking to launch an SNS in the future.
It's designed for established projects to hand over the governance of that project to a DAO. If you're not thinking about doing that, don't do an SNS. You can launch a token, provide liquidity, do that, but don't do an SNS. So that's the main thing. I think, you know, put real thought into your tokenomics, into your white paper, spend some time on it. Don't rush it. You know, this thing should be around for decades, hopefully, and you don't want to rush into that by spending 2 weeks on a white paper or whatever it might be. Community, I'd say, is the second thing. You know, don't just launch an SNS. If you just launch an SNS, it will not go very well. You need to sort of field the SNS, the idea of doing an SNS with your early community, early supporters, and then focus on kind of marketing and incentivizing those people who are going to be taking part. So I think, yeah, those are the two things, tokenomics and community. And if you can kind of nail those and you've got a great product, then by all means do it, because it really does open some doors for projects to, you know, take their idea and try and grow it into a real business.
Yeah, it's quite hard to add to that. I think if you've got a good product, doesn't really matter what. There's been so much variety in the SNS projects that have been successful. I think if you've got a good product and you've got people who are following it, then based on the number of SNSs we've had, it seems like you would do well. If you've just got community behind you, yeah, go for it and build from there.
I like what was just said there. You know, if the best way to see an SNS is something that can last like 10 years into the future, and maybe beyond you as a founder, or beyond, like a true DAO could kind of keep living on, or, you know, see it in a long-term perspective. Thank you so much to Hamish and to Tom from OpenChat and TRAX. Thank you. Two questions. I guess we have time for 2 questions. We've got 2 over there, so I think there's a mic that's going to be passed around. James, do you have a question?
Yeah, just as someone who's about to finish the SNS, and I'm going to move on to the mobile app development. It's for Hamish. Like, why is there no OpenChat mobile app? And is there a technical reason for that? Is there something I should be looking out for? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah, because I know you mentioned you were going to build a mobile app, and it's a tough one because people expect you to have a mobile app. It's probably probably the most requested thing. People just be like, when iOS app, when Android app. We made a motion proposal asking the community, should we build apps? And it was very divisive. We, as the 3 founders, we actually stayed out of that vote. We wanted to see what the community thought. And yeah, that vote didn't pass, it got rejected. And there's trade-offs, because if you have an app in the App Store, every time you update it, you have to go through your process with Apple, and then and also we have like sending crypto tokens, we have like peer-to-peer swaps, you can do swaps via other dexes, and we probably have to disable a lot of those features if we have an app. Like Diamond membership payments, Apple would probably have to take a cut. There were many more reasons in the proposal. I'm trying to think of them now on the spot. We would have to support all of the history of versions, because right now we only ever have to support the current version and the version we're upgrading to. Whereas someone might have a version of the app from a year ago and they try to send a message and they're like, why won't it send? And it's like, well, because your app version is a year out of date. And we, what else was there? There's no legal entity. Like, who signs with Apple? The OpenChat DAO. We'd have to like make a proposal for what the signature would be. Like, you know, it doesn't really fit the legal. There's no legal framework for it.
But in your case, Tom, you don't have as many of the kind of like, for example, swap features or whatever. So you might be in a better position to do that.
Yeah, I think we are. The biggest issue for us in that relation is our splits on payments are 90% to the artist, 10% to us. Like, that's the split on commission. Whereas when you then add a third party, the App Store, into that, what does that then look like? So how similar applications have kind of handled it is they will actually host the payment terminal on the web. So you'll go on the app, for example, Patreon or you know, other applications like that. So that's, I think, how we'll look to get around it. You basically have certain elements hosted on the web, they're outside of the app, and you can kind of circumvent certain App Store rules. But they're clamping down on that. I mean, the alternative you have is what we both have, which is like a PWA. You know, you can have it as an app logo, but the drawbacks of that are things like no push notifications, updates, you know, all this kind of stuff. So,
well, so we've got push notifications, but they aren't as reliable as native ones. Like, native ones you'll get immediately. Sometimes, like if your phone is, sometimes the delivery isn't as good as it could be, but they generally work. Like, I get them on my watch.
No, I suppose the only thing is the friction for users to set it up, you know, because mobile apps are so easy to just. Yeah. But no, yeah, it's a balancing act, I think. Nick, do we have time for one more question? Should we do one more? One more?
My question was answered, by the way.
Okay, okay.
Go on, Joey. Let's have one more from Joey, and then we really must wrap up. You need the
Like,
mic.
yeah.
So yes.
Joey, the founder of Qtopia, Epic.
This is for you, Hamish. So this is a problem which a lot of the games face on ICP, and you talking about video calls made me think about that. So you said that at the moment you have something hosted off-chain. Were you able to, did you look into the possibility of having something peer-to-peer with like WebSockets where you were able to just talk directly to each other, or was that not possible?
Yeah, we have played around with doing WebRTC peer-to-peer, but we just found that it was just impossible to make it work with well with more than like 2, 3, 4 people. And you know, we want to try and support calls with like hundreds of people, and so yeah, we just decided to go off-chain.
Yeah, and hopefully soon. Well, I think we have WebSockets with canisters now, but I don't know if the throughput is quite enough yet.
But it doesn't make the update calls any quicker. It just makes the API for getting the result of an update call nicer. So. it's kind of a layer in front of the canister. It doesn't make the performance any quicker.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. And once again, a round of applause for Tom. And thank you. Thanks, guys. Love it.